Get Rich Education is brought to you by Norada Real Estate, Corporate Direct, and Mid-South Home Buyers.
Garrett Sutton here, Robert Kiyosaki's asset protection attorney and the author of Loopholes of Real Estate. As an American or foreign-based investor in U.S. real estate, you know we are a litigious society. You know that you need to protect your real estate and paper asset holdings with the right mix of LLCs and corporations. My firm, Corporate Direct, not only forms these entities, but importantly, we properly maintain them too. If you fail to follow the corporate formalities, you can lose it all in an instant. Corporate Direct is your source for LLC protection and maintenance in all 50 states. Visit corporatedirect.com or call 800-600-1760. Mention Get Rich Education for a free bonus. Switch your resident agent service to us and receive another bonus. It's all good. We look forward to assisting you at corporatedirect.com.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Welcome to Get Rich Education, episode 93. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold, and today I want to tell you why single-family homes as income property could very well be your best investment today. Of course, I'm putting the emphasis on single-family income property, all right? If your primary residence is a single-family home, well, then that's likely a good investment from a lifestyle angle, but not from a strictly financial standpoint. We're talking about buy and hold property with you as the passive investor. And you know what everyday people think that real estate investing is? It's remarkable how often you run into this. They think that it's house flipping. You know, most people think real estate investing is buying a dilapidated fixer-upper, maybe a property that's in foreclosure, and then renovating it, and then selling it for more money than what they've put into it. Well, flipping is not long-term real estate investing, and some don't consider house flipping as real estate investing at all, okay? Now, I'm not saying flipping's not worth it. You're not marrying yourself to a market like you do with long-term passive investing, but flipping is not passive, okay? Often with flipping, you're just trading your time for dollars again, and that's why we talk about long-term buy and hold real estate investing for cash flow here on this show. Now, note that flipping might be worth it, okay? I'm not saying that it isn't. If you've got an established flipping business and a lot of contractors doing the work for you, well, that might be great, but now you've got an active business, and that's not passive investing either. Now, income property is often, it's really not about moving out of the home that you currently live in and then renting it out to someone else later either, because 95% of the time, you just don't live in the type of geographic market where your primary residence, if rented out, will ever produce a monthly income net of a property's associated expenses. So we talk about where those investor-advantaged markets and really sub-markets within metros are on this show, and they're nearly always in the United States and in the Midwest and South of the United States. Well, I'm hoping that you've lived a great week. One thing that happened to me this week is that I was invited, I received an invitation to be an author, a regular contributing writer to Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Advisors blog, and I accepted that invitation, and really I'm quite proud and honored to be a voice at the Rich Dad Advisors blog now. My first article was published there on Monday, 4 days ago. I'll link you to that in the show notes. So I really want to thank the advisors for that invitation. Very cool. And you know, really, it just goes to show you, I guess, that if you put in enough good work and you put it out there where you just lead with helping create wealth for others rather than leading with your need, you don't want to lead with your need in life. Well, if you do this, people are just going to notice and opportunities are going to open up. And the same goes for you. Okay. If you lead with giving and creating value for others, you will both feel good about what you're doing, and it's going to come back to you many times over. It might take some time to come back to you, though, okay? And let me just be clear about another thing. I am not one of Robert Kiyosaki's elite 7 or so Rich Dad advisors, okay? I'm a contributing writer to the Rich Dad Advisors blog, and I get to write alongside a lot of the advisors there, most of whom you've heard here on this show that appeared as guests with me, like Ken McElroy, Garrett Sutton, Blair Singer, Tom Wheelwright, and Josh and Lisa Lannon. So to avoid any confusion, my platform, Get Rich Education, that has no formal business relationship to Rich Dad Education. I am my own thing with GRE, okay? It's just that the names, Get Rich Education and Rich Dad Education, they're just sort of similar. And I do kind of do these increasing crossover activities with Robert Kiyosaki and his Rich Dad Advisors. And again, truly so honored and humbled to be invited to do so. And of course, you can always read all of my blog articles at getricheducation.com/blog. That's getricheducation.com/blog. And every word of my articles are written by me, by the way. There are no guest writers, or I guess that term is actually ghost writers. It's all me. So another thing that happened this week is that the S&P 500 index closed at an all-time high. So yeah, Wall Street, CNBC, and others in the mainstream media, they'd like to celebrate that sort of thing. And, they're thinking that that's great because this is getting them wealthy. Oh, geez. I mean, none of them seem to realize what GRE listeners realize, and that is that the S&P 500 has to hit an all-time high every day just to keep up with inflation. Okay, so it's not any sort of wealth creation benchmark at all since it hit an all-time high. Okay, it has to hit that all-time high every day just for you to make zero gain in your prosperity. So I'm talking about why single-family income properties are likely the best investment today, and not just in the real estate world, but anywhere, okay? And keep in mind that at times I need to speak in generalities today. There are just too many little exceptions to trends and probabilities such that I have to mention every last caveat. Then we just wouldn't get in any learning today. Just for example here, okay, multifamily apartment buildings, they're typically closer to the urban core in a metro, while single-family homes are in more outlying areas further away from that central business district core. So that's just one sort of generality you will probably see me reference today, okay? And, it was roughly 4 years ago where Warren Buffett, he suggested that the opportunity to invest in single-family rentals was terrific. And that's when he famously said, if I had a way of buying a couple 100,000 single-family homes, and if I had a way of managing them, I would load up on them, okay? So Buffett saw the opportunity in single-family homes then. So first, let's just take a look at exactly how much of the market that we're talking about here so that we get some sense of scale and relativity and opportunity, all right? So the single-family rental market, that makes up 13% of all occupied housing and 37% of the total rental market. And most agree that that's only poised for more growth from here. And that's what a new white paper from the National Home Rental Council posited anyway. So again, that's the single-family rental market. It's 13% of all occupied housing, and it's 37% of the total rental market. Since 2005, there has been a pretty significant uptick in renters overall, okay? And that's in both single-family and multifamily. And a lot of people in their 50s and 60s are the ones that are making up the largest chunk of that increase. Those age cohorts proportionally in the 50s and 60s are what a Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies concluded. And the homeownership rate has fallen considerably since then, 2005. In fact, right now, homeownership is at multi-generational lows, and that's been replaced by rental demand. Now, let's think about some reasons behind those statistics, okay? The reason that single-family homes in particular are kind of best positioned for future demand increases is that there could very well be demand for housing units with more bedrooms. The millennial generation is even larger than the baby boom generation, as you know. And although people have smaller families now than they did generations ago, this swell of the younger, larger millennial cohort is going to start to age and have families. So you have increased rental demand just overall among all housing types. And then you have demand concentrating toward homes which have more bedrooms, which tend to be those single-family homes, not the multifamily ones. So when you have that happening with single-family demand, just consider at the same time what's happening to supply. When you think about a community kind of building new rental housing to meet this increased demand for rental housing, well, what kind of buildings do you think about in your mind when you envision new rentals being built? Yeah, you think about multifamily apartment buildings, okay? So as this rental demand increases, it can be much more difficult for the supply of new single-family income properties to come online, okay? Because it's kind of rare for builders to build single-family homes specifically for rental purposes. Single-family homes are typically built for owner-occupied home buyers. Of course, there are some exceptions to that. We're just talking about trends again. So now you've got an increasing demand for this single-family home amenity where supply does not nearly keep up proportionally with demand. It doesn't keep pace, okay? They don't build rows of new single-family homes for the purpose of rentals so much. And consider as well here, pretty soon it'll be nearly 10 years after the Great Recession and the mortgage meltdown. Consider that single-family home prices, they haven't even recovered as much as apartment values have. So there is a much better chance that you're going to have additional upside, additional price appreciation with single-family income property, okay? Apartment buildings, they've seen their cap rates be driven down, down, down as a result of their stronger price recovery. For an investor, the property cost is an advantage with single-family homes too. You can get in for under $20,000. Now, if you have to wait until you have the requisite 20, 25, sometimes 30% down payment on a multifamily apartment building, well, then you've got the time value of money eroding that money's purchasing power while you have to take more time to reload until you can deploy some of that equity into those larger purposes. Okay, so you can be more nimble with single-family properties and keep your dollars circulating, moving, and keep more of them leveraged. And think about it too, when you go to sell your single-family income property down the road, you can also be more nimble, just like you can on the entrance, okay? So let's say there's a scenario. Say you have one 10-unit apartment building, and you want to sell a fraction of your 10-unit apartment building. Well, you can't very well sell 20% of that apartment building, okay? But if you have 10 single-family homes instead, you can more easily sell just 2 of them. So you also have this more liquid exit strategy. So if and when you decide to sell your single-family income property down the road, again, more people can buy that single-family income home because the price point is lower than it is for an apartment building. And also with a larger apartment building, you just can't go sell it to someone that wants to make it their primary residence. That's pretty unlikely. So the primary residence buyer pool, the owner-occupant buyer pool, just isn't interested in living in one unit of a 10-plex. If they've got the financial wherewithal to buy a 10-plex, they can probably afford to live in a better place that's less communal, okay? When you sell your single-family home down the road, if you've experienced a great price run-up on your property, well, that property, you can still sell it at that higher price point potentially because it does not have to provide cash flow to that new buyer, okay? That new buyer might not care about it as a cash flowing investment because they're just happy living in their primary residence. So you've got that wider buyer pool when you go to sell your single-family investment property. Now, think about the school district associated with the property too, okay? Typically, single-family properties, they're in more desirable school districts than those places where there are a lot of multifamily apartment buildings. But, maybe you're wondering, okay, now why should I care about a school district? Because this is income property. You're thinking you don't live there. Well, of course, a better school district means that your single-family property tenants, they're going to be more likely to stay there longer if they're in a good school district, and that's going to increase your occupancy, and it's going to increase your income. Okay, that decreases the number of times that you have those costly tenant turnovers that cut your cash flow because, you're inevitably always having to make some sort of renovation or repair when you're between tenants, and you're going to go ahead and limit that, okay? With single-family homes, it's also easier for you to diversify geographically. For diversification, it's often best for you to be in 3 to 5 geographic markets, either 3 or 4 or 5 different U.S. metro areas. So just again here, keeping things simple in general. Now, if you have the purchasing power, say you have the purchasing power to buy and control 10 rental units again. Well, your ownership of one 10-unit apartment building, that might work out just great, but now all 10 of your rent incomes, they're all geographically tied to the robustness of one local economy, okay? And your income stream then is less durable and more precarious on average. But conversely, if you use your purchasing power over time to buy 10 single-family homes, you can spread those 10 single-family homes among, say, 4 different metro areas. Well, now the durability of your income stream, is going to be more durable because you're likely to have exposure to more varied business sectors across those 4 different metro areas, okay? And I've talked on the show before about how if you buy in way too many different metros, say you bought in 8 different metros, well, then you're kind of juggling these monthly statements from 8 different property managers, and that can kind of bog down the return on time that you have invested into this. So we want to remember that we're investors, but we're not just here to make more money, okay? We're here to make more money and live better lives. So 3 to 5 metro markets, it gives you a good measure of diversification, and it limits your administrative overburden. And yeah, it's kind of cool. You sort of become this collector of income-producing real estate for these kind of lower-priced properties that are tied to long-term fixed interest rate debt. And speaking of interest rates, really, that's another advantage to single-family property, okay? Both the interest rate itself is lower than they are with larger apartments, and you can get these 30-year fixed amortizing loans that they're not available on larger apartment buildings, and the 30-year fixed amortizing loans just aren't even available in many countries in the world outside of the United States. So here today, it's now easier to get loans for more than 10 single-family homes, and that was more difficult just a few years ago, but lending has loosened up in a number of areas. And just a little humorous aside here. So at times I travel around, mostly within the U.S., to give you a field report on the best cash flowing income properties. And usually the local provider, it's usually a guy, he's the one driving around giving me a tour of that metro area's properties, neighborhoods, areas, and industries too. And most of the time, once that tour is maybe halfway through, I say something to that provider in the car about, hey, maybe we could just kind of bang it through the hood one time just so that I can see what some of the more beat up sections of town look like. And I know that any good provider avoids buying in those sections, but I just like kind of seeing those areas for perspective. And you know what? Invariably and inevitably, the provider always replies in the affirmative to me saying oh yeah, we'll be sure to do that later. And you know what? Not one time, not even one time do they ever get around to taking me to the hood, the other side of the tracks, the war zone, the bad neighborhood in town. It's like they just don't want me to see that. And I know every town has one. I know that the turnkey provider is not buying there. So it's just kind of funny that not one time, not once does a provider show me that. So I don't know. Well, maybe they should, it would make what we call the sweet spot. It would make what we call the investor advantage part of town look comparatively better, perhaps. So oftentimes the investor advantage neighborhoods and submarkets are blue collar looking, but they feel quite safe at the same time. I'm going to talk a bit more about how new technology coming online could make single-family home income property buys smarter than apartment buildings in a moment. This is Get Rich Education. Cash flow real estate investors nationwide and worldwide, this is Get Rich Education's Keith Weinhold. Forbes has rated Memphis, Tennessee as the #1 cash flowing market in the world. Our good friends at Mid-South Homebuyers have been Memphis's premier turnkey real estate provider for 14 years with a stellar reputation and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Owner Terry Kerr was born and raised in Memphis. Yeah, he knows the market and has renovated and sold over 1,000 houses in the Memphis area. Find out what their many repeat buyers already know. Their houses are completely renovated, even come with a 1-year builder's warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're a perfect fit for the first-time out-of-state investor or the seasoned investor diversifying their portfolio. Mid-South Homebuyers' friendly staff makes investing easy. Learn more at midsouthhomebuyers.com or give them a call at 901-217-HOME.
Are you having a hard time finding great investment properties? Unfortunately, the best deals are rarely found locally. Successful investing begins with the right properties in the right markets. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best deals across the U.S. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly cash flow. Get your free copy of the ultimate guide to passive real estate investing at noradarealestate.com/guide. That's NORADA realestate.com/guide.
Hey everybody, this is Matt Bowles from Maverick Investor Group. You're listening to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, and don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. I'm telling you why the best investment of any investment on earth today are single-family income properties where the monthly rent income is greater than the monthly expenses, which is your passive income generator, money that you don't have to work for. Better than apartment buildings, better than condos, better than office buildings, better than silver, gold, platinum, palladium, rhodium, and of course, substantially better than stocks, bonds, and mutual funds where your rate of return is zero or maybe even worse, okay? If a recession hits, or when a recession hits, real estate that houses jobs like office and retail will show rental weakness before the real estate that houses people, single-family homes. Now, of course, you are paid with leveraged cash-flowing real estate 5 ways at the same time, and that's how you achieve rates of return that just bury inflation and bury inflation 5-fold to 10-fold, okay? Most people that try investing in buy and hold condominiums, you know what they do? They just end up absolutely hating condos and hating their lives. Condos, they sort of come with this, I'm going to call it a giant wasteful expense of a homeowners association or an HOA, okay? Well, the HOA, they often put limits on the condo units that they control. They can often control what percent of units in the association may be rented and what proportion have to be owned and occupied by those owners. HOAs often contract with overpaid vendors. The HOA is often run by a totally untrained volunteer board membership. And some of these HOA special assessments, they kind of come along and make the monthly condo association dues effectively quite variable and unpredictable on you as the investor. If your neighbors don't pay their condo association dues, your dues can resultantly go up. Buy and hold condo income property can just result in a lot of frustrations. let's touch on another problem that condos or apartment buildings both have in common, and that is that problems can spread. With the way that problems can spread, I'm going to call them unconfined, okay? If you have a fire in one unit, it can more easily spread to another unit. One noisy unit might alienate or displace all the units next to it or all the tenants in the units next to it. Well, in a single family home, the noisy tenant, they're just not going to scare away a tenant on the other side of a common wall, okay? Because the only thing on the other side of that wall is that tenant's yard, all right? A fire is going to be contained to just one single family home oftentimes. And of course, you're typically insured for those types of calamities, and landlords' insurance policies usually provide you reimbursement of lost rent while a damaged unit is being repaired. But anyway, you still don't want to see a fire take place, and single-family homes can contain that risk. Utility expenses, they are a major advantage to single-family home investing, okay? So unlike apartments, in single-family income property, the tenant, not you, but the tenant is typically the one that pays for the heat, the electricity, water, wastewater, refuse, even the lawn care. With apartments, most of those utility payments are on you. They're on your back as the investor. And many tenants, they just don't care about turning down the natural gas heat in the winter if you, as the investor, are the one that's paying that monthly bill. In a single-family home, the tenant pays all of those utility bills for you. Think about the tenant quality that you get in single-family homes that you're less likely to get in a multifamily apartment building, okay? It's typically a lower quality tenant that will tolerate the more communal feel of an apartment. Again, I'm just making generalizations here. A better quality tenant, they're more quiet, they tend to be more educated, they are more likely to pay the rent on time. Of course, there are numerous exceptions. Think, too, about tenant psychology. Single-family home tenants, they often treat that property more like their own. They kind of feel this partial sense of ownership, so they'll take better care of it. It kind of feels like theirs. Your property manager, they might let a good long-term tenant paint their walls from white to beige so that it will feel like their own, and then they'll stay even longer if that's okay with you, the investor, that gives the manager the latitude to do that. Now, also look at how autonomous cars are going to change things, okay? Some call them driverless cars, same thing. Take a look at how they promise to disrupt the geography of distribution and the geography of human habitation. Yes, the geography of where people live. And every major car manufacturer has had an autonomous car prototype. For years, Tesla has been a real leader in bringing them closer to mainstream. Okay, so with these basically GPS-controlled cars that you can ride in, but you don't have to drive, you as a commuter, you won't experience the same, frankly, the same low return on time invested that a manual driver needs to today. So now while commuting, one can read uninterrupted in the car. They can even sleep in their car. They can run on a treadmill in their car, watch a video uninterrupted in their car. So they don't have to be as concerned about an accident. They can even enjoy lower auto insurance rates, and the cost of car ownership goes down. Well, the advantage of living closer to urban cores is diminished, and the demand for residing in outlying areas where single-family homes are, that's going to increase, okay? So that walkability premium closer to the urban core, that's still going to have some value, but it's going to have less value than it had before. So many trends point to single-family homes rented to others and held for the production of income as being the best investment class today. And, people are just not going to stop needing an affordable place to live, okay? Because location is vital to your property's value and your property's occupancy rate and your property's rent income. And because that's true, you're generally avoiding the coastal areas of the U.S. you're looking for those rent-to-value ratios of 1% or better. Now, just take the home that I live in. It's not a low-priced area, and it would perform poorly for one to buy it, to hold it, and to rent my home to others. Just consider this subtle irony for a minute. You're an investor that seeks yield. You seek the best return on your capital invested within your unique risk tolerance so that you can live better and give better. That's kind of the point here, all right? You want to live better and give better. Well, the irony is that what you seek for investment is something very much like that which you might already own, okay? 4 walls and a roof, okay? You might already be a single-family homeowner. In fact, you might even be listening to me right now from the inside of your single-family home. So in this kind of world of derivatives and flash crashes and sexy tech IPOs and virtual reality and augmented reality, the best investment is still a single-family home. You might be inside one right now, and, even futurists don't foresee a technology to replace it anytime soon. So sometimes people wonder where the answer is. What's the best investment? You might be inside one right now, but you know what? The chances is that your exact home would not make a great cash flowing rental. And mine wouldn't either. My home is a $475,000 home. And the home next to me, it rents for $2,800. And mine, it probably wouldn't rent for much more than that, okay? So that ratio, $2,800 divided by $475,000, that's about a 0.6% rent-to-value ratio. So it just does not work as an income property. And you know what else? And here's something that you've probably never thought about, and I hope that I don't get too poetic in describing this, but just think about it. When you buy a cash-flowing, single-family income property, think of all the people, all the human capital, and all the faculties that went into producing that home from the ground up. And then kind of ask yourself, who benefits from the construction and the entire lifespan of that structure? Who benefits more than anyone else, okay? Years ago, you've got, say, the board members on the zoning commission that designated a tract for development. Then you've got the foundation excavator after the home's laid out, okay? Then you've got the concrete truck driver to pour the foundation. You've got the mason or the bricklayer using the trowel to build the walls. Is he benefiting the most from this entire production? Or is it the electrical apprentice efforting to be a journeyman? Is he benefiting the most? Or is it a journeyman plumber whose back hurts at the end of every pipe fitting week? Is he the one that makes out the most from the production of this home? Is it a carpenter that gets calloused thumbs that's framing the home? You've got drywall installers that got cracked hands setting the walls. You've got carpet installers. You've got a real estate agent. Maybe he or she is the one that benefits the most, that real estate agent that needs to get all the paperwork and all the disclosures right and coordinate all those showings. Maybe she's the one that benefits from the production of this home the most. And then at closing, it's the title agents and their researchers doing the title searches. Are they the ones benefiting the most from the production of this home? And then after all that, you've got the property occupied with the tenant, a tenant that labors full-time, that exchanges a piece of their labor at a full-time job to pay the rent. They get to sleep there. Do you think that they're the ones benefiting the most from the production and the lifespan of this home? So all these people I've mentioned, they've endeavored, they've labored, they've sacrificed, they've sweated. And of all these people, who benefits the most? Well, I think you know the answer. It's none of the people that I stated above. The chief beneficiary of the entire arrangement is that passive real estate investor at the end, the one that's paid 5 ways at the same time. It's you. You bought with a plan. You bought strategically. You're the one that holds and controls the property for the production of passive income rather than trading your time for dollars like everyone else I just named in the entire transaction. You're the wisest one, and you're the profiteer because, well, you know that doing the right thing is more important than doing things right. So it's finding those investor advantage properties at providers like MidSouthHomebuyers.com or NoradaRealEstate.com or LittleRockTurnkey.com that can find just those investor advantage properties for you. And now you might be wondering why I could go on and on about the benefits of single-family homes here, especially since I'm the one that started off with a bang with a fourplex building, and because I own larger apartment buildings today myself. And you know what? After all this, I really could make a strong case for apartment buildings too. They have many advantages that single-family homes don't. I discussed that back in episode 65. But I still think single-family homes win out over apartments today. I'll be back next week to help you build your wealth with how you can use your retirement account, especially your IRA, to invest in assets like income property or other alternatives to mutual funds and stocks so that you can evaluate how to better get some of your dead equity moving. And, even if you don't have an IRA, you might want to put together a deal with a group of investors someday, and some of those investors might have substantial funds in their IRA, so that knowledge could benefit you there. I will chat with you next week. For my business developers, John Collins and Marcus Whelan, sound engineer Vidran Jampo, and GetRichEducation.com's web designer Nikon Roy, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to Get Rich Education, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to visit iTunes and leave your comments.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.